You know, the classic thinking in economics is that it's always a trade-off, a battle between a company's drive for maximum profit and what's actually fair for the rest of us. But what if I told you some new research completely flips that idea on its head?
I mean, what if there was this magic price? A single number where a company's greed and the social good weren't fighting each other, but were perfectly, almost mathematically aligned. It sounds kind of impossible, right? But stick with me because that's exactly what we're going to unpack.
So let's start with the classic seller's dilemma. It's a constant tug of war. Do you crank prices way up to squeeze out every last dollar of profit, even if that means some of your stuff goes unsold? Or do you set a lower price to sell everything you've got, what's called a market clearing price, which we usually think is better for everyone, but might mean you're leaving cash on the table? These two goals seem to be pulling in totally opposite directions.
Okay, so let's step into the textbook for just a second. In a perfect world, economists dream of something called utilitarian efficiency. It's a really simple, kind of elegant idea. Goods should go to whoever wants them the most. Period. This setup maximizes the total happiness, or what economists call utility, for everybody involved.
Think about it like this: a ticket to see your favorite band. Utilitarian efficiency says that ticket should always go to the biggest fan in the world, the person who would get the most absolute joy from being there. Sounds great, doesn't it?
Well, here's where the real world comes crashing in. What happens when that number one fan just doesn't have the cash? All of a sudden, that simple, beautiful ideal completely shatters because of a very real problem: budgets.
Okay, so let's make this super concrete. Imagine you have two buyers. Buyer 1 absolutely loves this product, values it way more than buyer 2, who's just kind of about it. Pure efficiency says buyer 1 should get all of it. But what if buyer 1 has a really tight budget? At the going price, they can only afford a little bit. The result? The person who values it the most gets less, and our whole perfect outcome just falls apart.
So this is where the researchers introduce a new, much more realistic way of looking at things. They call it constrained utilitarian efficiency. This isn't about some fantasy world. It's about finding the absolute best possible outcome for society, given the hard limits of people's wallets. It's about getting the most fairness we can in the world we actually live in.
And the researchers themselves, they don't see this as just some abstract theory. They call it a compelling and practical benchmark. In other words, this is a real tool we can use to measure what good actually looks like in markets where, money doesn't grow on trees.
Okay, so this all leads us right back to that big, kind of crazy question we started with. When you factor in these real-world budget limits, is it even possible for a seller who's only trying to make as much money as possible to accidentally land on the best possible outcome for society?
And the answer, which is pretty mind-blowing, is yes. At least in some incredibly important cases.
So this is the big reveal. The paper calls it the revenue welfare coincidence. It means there's a unique price point, a sweet spot, where a seller's revenue is totally maxed out, and at that exact same price, social welfare, constrained by everyone's budgets, is also maxed out. Those two opposing forces suddenly click together and become the same thing.
Okay, I know what you're thinking. That sounds way too good to be true, right? Does this mean every profit-hungry corporation is secretly a do-getter? Well, not so fast. There's a really important catch. This perfect alignment only works for a specific type of product, things with what economists call linear valuations. The easiest way to think about it is with pizza. The first slice? Amazing. The fifth slice? Not so much. Your value for each extra slice goes down. That's a diminishing valuation. But now think about something like an online ad click. For a business, the 1,000th click can be just as valuable as the very first one. The value is constant, it's linear. And this incredible win-win scenario, it only happens in those linear markets. And get this, it's even more specific than that. We're not talking about a good enough range of prices. The research shows there is exactly just one, unique price that hits this perfect bullseye of maximum profit and maximum fairness.
So right now, you're probably thinking, okay, that's a cool theory, but do these linear valuation markets really matter? Are they even a big deal? And the answer is, oh yeah. They're not just a big deal, they're some of the biggest, most powerful markets on the entire planet.
I mean, we are talking about the very engine of the modern internet, those digital ad auctions run by giants like Google and Meta. We're talking about the massive exchanges where financial assets are traded every second. And it even applies to these incredibly high-stakes negotiations like the Arctic auction, which helps restructure the debt of entire countries.
And look, if you need a sense of just how massive this is, check this out. The digital ad market alone. We're talking hundreds of billions of dollars. It's the financial foundation for so much of what we do online. So yeah, getting the price right here isn't just some academic puzzle. It has huge real-world consequences.
So what's the big takeaway here? Well, the researchers point to something really powerful. They suggest that if regulators stepped in and required these massive platforms to use that one single market-clearing price, it could basically force the company's interests to align perfectly with society's interests. It's a potential game changer for regulating big tech.
And that leaves us with a really big, lingering question. The math shows that in some of the world's most important markets, profit and fairness can be the exact same thing. So, if this perfect alignment is actually possible, what in the real world is stopping it from happening?